Well, judging by what's up on the wall, I started to sweat for this class at about 7 o'clock today. Going over my notes again and thinking, oh boy. Emily said to me, she said, "Do you have a backup lesson?" I did not. And then her other comment to me this morning, which I thought was funny, a few years ago I taught a Sunday school class and I didn't preview all of the video that I was going to show. And when I did that, it was an expletive came out, it was said, and so maybe this will erase that from your memory, and now you'll just remember this class. So either way. We've got a couple minutes, so got to wait for the live stream stuff. It's good to see everybody. Got a few more people trickling in here. Some of you that are by yourself today, is your spouse coming or are they just not? Okay. Oh, he's doing live. Oh, so he's going to watch in there? Oh, that's nice. Yeah. That's perfect. So, yeah, it's always, it's nice that people can watch it later. It's also terrifying that people can watch this later. So I'll apologize now for any, whatever comes out of me here, so.
What did he say? Rewind.
Yeah, exactly. Did he say what I think he said? No edits. The edits don't make it fun. All right. I would say for the good of the cause, if you've got kids in here, young kids, that you don't want them to hear stuff about that. Just no, that's where we're going. So in some fashion. So, all right. All right. Well, let's go ahead and pray together, and we'll make the best use of our time as we can today. Father, you are good. We thank you for your grace and your goodness and your wonderful love for us. God, we thank you for allowing us to sit under the teaching of your word today and help us to apply those things and maybe be encouraged by them as well. Lord, I just do give you thanks for the Sunday school class and all those that are here. Lord, I pray that even in this topic that you don't shy away from in your word. Lord, I pray that we would glorify you, that we would seek to honor you in our marriages, and that we might even understand how best to relate to one another from being in here today. We just thank you in your name. Amen. All right. So as displayed on the screen in front of you, our topic today is going to focus around the idea of emotional and physical intimacy. And I think that sometimes we shy away from that at church. We don't talk about it much. And I think that's probably an oversight. And so we're going to spend a little bit of time there today. So if you need to giggle a little bit and get it out of your system, that's fine. We've all got a little bit of junior high in us. But the reality is we're going to talk a little bit about the physical nature of our relationships today. All right? So as we start to talk about intimacy in marriage, I want to just do some defining of terms with you, and maybe just spend a minute just letting you think about, and if you want to talk, you can, but the reality is I want you just to think about, what does affection look like for you? Right? Are you a person that likes physical touch? Are you a verbal person? Are you an actions-oriented person? What does affection look like for you? We're all different. Along that same line of thinking, have you ever talked to your spouse about that? Right? It's kind of funny. Emily and I, we've been married almost 27 years this July. And this Sunday school class has afforded us opportunity to talk about things that we haven't talked about ever. And it's really crazy. And so I would submit, and this may not be what you like, but I would submit that you're more like me than you might think you are. And that I'm guessing in most of your marriages, you may not have talked about some of this. And so I'm going to encourage that you do that. And we're going to give you some guidelines maybe for making those conversations be rich, but also safe, okay, in our application time together. So what does affection mean to you? Think about that. What's it mean to you? And what about intimacy? What does intimacy mean to you? What is that like in your world? How do you relate to that comment? Do you talk about these things in your marriage? My next thought for you is, what is your marriage like? What's your love like? Your love life like? Right? We've got about 40 couples in here, roughly. I'm guessing that there's a wide spectrum of what your relationships look like as far as how you operate in your relationships in an intimate way. Some of you may have great ease and desire and closeness. And some of you may have very little desire and closeness, right? And the reason I want to talk about it is I think that it's something we need to work on. I think we need to address it, right? It doesn't do us any good in our marriages just to not talk about these kind of things. So I hope that today we can maybe shed a little bit of light on this subject. And I hope you can take some of what we're talking about and just let it marinate in your heart, right? In your own life, in your marriage. Okay. So I brought in a friend of mine. This is a very special shoe to me. May not look like it, but it is. When I bought this shoe, I bought it for a reason. I was starting a business, and I was going door to door talking to people about myself. This shoe has miles upon miles upon miles on it, and stories that I could hardly tell you in a week. Okay? This shoe has heard the word no more than you can ever imagine. This shoe has seen doors slammed in its face. This shoe has seen old men answer the door in their underwear, right? This shoe has seen it all. So I'm convinced, though, that as this shoe is getting older, it still has purpose. It still has function. It still has meaning. In fact, I would say it has great meaning to me. But it doesn't, I don't wear it much, and I don't use it. In fact, it sits underneath my bed typically. It's kind of dusty. The sole is worn on both sides. It's actually kind of painful to wear it, right? When I first got that shoe, in fact, this is kind of my habit with all my shoes. When I first bought that shoe, I'd bring it into the house, and I don't wear shoes in my house, but I took off the shoe, and then I would put it back in its box. I'd probably clean it up a little bit. I'd put it back in its box. Before I wore it the next day, I might kind of polish it up a little, make it look good. Right? If the laces got old, I replaced them, but I kept them in a box. In fact, I have 3 pairs of shoes in my house right now in my room that sit in boxes. They're my new shoes. They're the ones that I cherish, that I wear a lot right now, right? The other ones seem to get discarded a bit. They don't live in their boxes anymore. They live in the garage with all the other old shoes, okay? Now, why do we talk about that? But I'm convinced that when you've been married 20, 30, 40, 50 years, that sometimes our marriages become like an old shoe. And here's what I mean by that. Just like I used to take care of that shoe and polish it, make sure it was clean. I didn't wear it on rainy days, right? They were good shoes. And even though they still work fine, I don't treasure that shoe anymore. I like it. It means a lot to me, but I don't treasure it. I don't put much dedication or care into it. But as I told you before, that wasn't always the case. Think back to your love relationship when you first met, and the dedication, the effort, the care, the time, the commitment, the wanting to know, the desiring to grow. You couldn't wait to see each other, think back to that. You get what I mean? I think sometimes our marriages can start to look like the old shoe. It still works. Our marriage still functions. Our marriage is fairly broke in, and I actually like it that way. It's fairly broke in. There's some worn spots. We're getting a little older. We put on a few pounds, right? Had a surgery or two. Maybe it's harder to walk. All sorts of things like that. In some ways, our marriages as we get older, it's almost seems easier. Less work. I know he's coming home. I know she's going to be there. Who cares? I don't have to put in effort today. Do you treasure the spouse like you used to? I think it's very easy to take one another in a marriage relationship, a long distance marriage relationship, for granted. I think it's very easy. Day by day, week by week, year by year. With our spouses, sometimes we wanted to get to know them. We wanted to be with them. We wanted to spend time. We wanted to understand. And sometimes later down the road, we don't pay as much attention. So I brought this as an illustration today, and I want you to really let it sink into your brain, because I think there's some truth to that for all of us. Let's open our Bibles just for really quickly this morning. Go to Song of Solomon. And we're going to talk just a little bit about young love. We all know the story of through the Song of Solomon. And we're going to go to chapter 7, verse 10. And this is after they've been married. This is after a little bit of some disagreement has happened. They've come back together. And this is what is said. Song of Solomon, chapter 7, verse 10 says, I am my beloved's, and his desire is for me. So this is the woman, I believe her name is Abishag, right? She's speaking. I am my beloved's. His desire is for me. So this is after they've wed. This is her talking about the relationship. And look what she says. She's acknowledging that she is his. In this statement, she knows and expresses that with confidence. I am, she says. She knows it. How does she know it? What do you think? How does she know it? When she makes that declarative statement, she says, I am his. You ever thought about that? I would argue that the reason that she knows it is that he displays it and he says it. He's demonstrated it. This is language from her of confidence. She is confident of his desire for her. Yeah, Darren. Right. Yeah. There's a whole lengthy conversation we could have about this through the Song of Solomon, which we're not going to do. But you're exactly right. He does show and share his feelings and thoughts there. So take a look at what we can see. In that young love, probably married for a year or so here, maybe, I don't know what the time frame is, but there's effort being applied. She knows it. She understands it. He's making his declaration of his care for her, and she knows it. Young love is blossoming, but there's been time spent, and they're growing together. So if you had the chance, and someone asked you something like that, what would you say about your relationship? What would you say? What do you think your spouse would say about your relationship? Would you have words like this? Could you confidently say, I am his, that he desires me? Right? Is that what your wife would say, men? I am his, that he desires me. Do you know it? And do you let them know it? I want to take a look at you in the lens just for a second as we move on. I want to ask it a little bit a different way. As we started this class, I started talking about your theology, your view, and your understanding of God, right? Your theology. What do you know? And sometimes the thinking on your personal theology determines what your relationship will look like. What is the world observing in your relationship? Men, when you speak harshly to your wife, what does the world observe? When you speak about your relationship with your spouse, possibly at work, and you have a condemnation type spirit towards your husband or towards your wife, to your coworkers, what does that show about your theology? When when maybe you're too attentive to someone else at the workplace, you show too much care or affection, what does that show about your theology? How does your life with your wife in your home reflect your theology? As we bicker and squabble, as we nag, as we're bitter, as we have harsh words, as we're too demanding, what does that say about your theology? What I mean by that is our view on our God and our relationship with Christ should drive your relationship, husband, should drive your relationship, wife. Follow? And so that's what should be the underpin in your relationship. Wives, you're to respect your husband. How's that going? Husbands, you're to live with your wives in an understanding way. How's it going? Let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 3 through 5. So far, it's been fairly easy. Now it gets to the harder parts. All right. 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 3 through 5. I'll find it here. Says this: the husband must fulfill his duty to his wife, and likewise also the wife to her husband. The wife does not have authority over her own body, but the husband does. And likewise also the husband does not have authority over his own body, but the wife does. Stop depriving one another, except by agreement for a time, so that you may devote yourselves to prayer, and come together again so that Satan will not tempt you because of your lack of self-control. We're going to focus on verse 5 and 6, or 5 real quick. Stop depriving one another, except by agreement for a time, so that you may devote yourselves to prayer and come together again so that Satan will not tempt you because of your lack of self-control. There's a couple of important truths that we find there. Who can name one of them for us? Anybody? Yeah. Okay, be selfless. I don't know if that's exactly what it's talking about, but sure. Be selfless. Here's what it's saying. It's saying it's good for you and your spouse to have sex, right? Don't be separate from one another. Be in an intimate, close relationship, right? Being apart from one another should not be a lengthy time period, right? And it says if you ought to be doing a lot of praying. Okay? You know, it's kind of a little funny joke you can make with your spouse. Are you praying a lot? Right? Okay. And then look at the last part. It says, come back together. Come back together. Don't stay apart. Look at the next part. Why? Why? Remember the first class? When we said about 30% of you should statistically get divorced, right? Remember that? You're not immune. You're not immune. My spouse would never do that. You're not immune, right? This is one of the gatekeepers for your marriage. Don't overlook it. Okay. So God gave you each other. God gave you a wife. God gave you a husband. Rejoice in that, please, people. You know how many single people wish they were married? Right? None of you are perfect. I mean, you all got lumps and warts. None of you are perfect. Right? Be thankful you have one another. Okay? We started that class a few weeks ago with some statistics, like I said. And how can we help prevent this? I think the end of verse 5 is a big help for us. Some of this I think I might be painting with a broad brush. And some of you might say, Jim, that doesn't apply to me, or that's not my heart, or that's not my feelings, or that's not my husband, that's not my wife, right? I'm speaking in some generalities. And I'm going to give you some Jimisms, right? Okay? So find the good that you can here, and don't hold the others against me. All right? What do you both need? There's two of you in your relationship. Unless you're in Utah, and then it's a whole other story. Sorry. Stick to the script, Jim. Stick to the script. All right. So you know what your wife needs, husband. And that may mean that intimacy looks different to your spouse, right? Intimacy may look different to your wife than it does to you, husband. Other side of that coin, intimacy may look different to your husband, wife, than it does to you. So the question is, when you have conversation that I'm going to encourage you to have this week, wives, find out about your husband's need in intimacy. Find out about what does he need. Is he a physical touch person? Does he need for you to hold his hand? Right? Wives, does he need for you to have a touch on his leg? Touch on the arm? What does your husband need? And the reason I say it that way is that most of you women, I could probably guess, may not need that as much. Right? You may not. Now, some of you might be like, oh, no, I do. Right? That's why I want you to have the conversation. I want you to talk about it. So there's differences in your physical needs. Again, we've been married 27 years. We hadn't talked about this. And it's okay if you haven't talked about it. What I want to encourage is that you start talking about it. Because the end of verse 5 says that there's temptation out there. And I think temptation looms in this arena. Right? Make it your goal to satisfy your spouse. Don't let a spark enter in to your relationship because we didn't know or we didn't take that action. I could probably tell you some personal stories in this world about things in my life that I'm not going to go down that road. But I can only surmise what may have happened in relationships that I'm close to and how an ember, a little spark starts outside of a marriage. Right? It doesn't take too long to start thinking about what might have happened. why might someone have strayed. It's always wrong, right? We're not saying that there's any right to that. But I'm just saying that sometimes there's also reason for it. It's never right. But if you can help not allow those embers to start outside of your home, that's a good thing, right? Put out the fire before it begins. If you know how to satisfy one another and your need for care and affection and love, there's a good chance they're not going to look for it away from you, right? So I think it does us good to pay attention to that. Fan the flames in your own marriage, right? Rekindle, reignite, get that spark going in your own marriage. Therefore, there's no need to look and wonder, right? The fire's going strong. It's your own house, right? Okay. I believe that you, each one of you are the best prevention of your spouse straying. I mean that. Because you are the one that is you're in control of giving affection and love and care. I'm not saying that it may not happen, but it's you are the gatekeeper. You have ability to allow intimacy, love, affection to be given. It's right there. You can do that. So as I was preparing for this class, I'm also very cognizant of, we've been married 27 years, but I know there's people in here that have been married for 40, 50 years. So I started thinking about, well, how does intimacy look in the life of someone that's 80, right? You don't check my Google searches right now. It's crazy what's out there. But the reality is this. Here's what I found, and I think it's just fascinating. It's to me, this is what I found, is that people that are older in their marriages, older in life, they still have intimacy together, right? They're still intimate with one another. It may look different. It may not be quite as what it was when you were 25, but the reality is that there's still a passion and a love for one another as you get older. That's encouraging to me, folks. I think that's great. But I also heard this. If you want to have intimacy in your 80s, you should be intimate in your 70s. And if you want to be intimate in your 70s, be intimate in your 60s and in your 50s and your 40s, right? Grow in that love for one another so that doesn't diminish. Desire doesn't seem to go away, but it might look different. But I know this, while we're not told a ton about some of these areas in Scripture, Scripture doesn't pull away from the fact that we're not to deprive one another, right? We're not to deprive one another. So I'd encourage you not to do that. Okay. How is your relationship in general? Are you an argumentative couple? Do you have somewhat different pages of how you see life? I'm going to encourage that you work on those areas and also work on your emotional and physical intimacy. As you work on the emotional part of your marriage, the physical part will follow. Right? I'll say it a different way. She may not want to be as close to you, men, physically, when you're not close to her emotionally, right? If you have no real care, affection, love, concern, gentleness to you, your wife may not have quite a strong desire to be physically engaged with you. The other side of that's also true. Women, your husband needs physical touch. He needs intimacy. He needs the physical side of your relationship. He needs it. We're different, but your husband needs that. He desires it. It's easy to stray because of it. So be attentive to it. Okay, you're a gatekeeper, right? Just talk for a second here. Are you talking about your sex life? Do you ever talk about it? Do you ever talk about the intimate side of your life with one another? Your homework this week is to do that, by the way. So if you haven't, it will be uncomfortable. It will be weird. It's going to feel different. But I'm going to encourage you to do that. In an intimate relationship, it is not all about you. I'll say it to the men a little bit. Men, it's not all about you. All right? In other words, focus on your spouse rather than yourself. Be caring, concerned about your spouse in your intimate side of your marriage. Marcia, don't go too far. You're up next. If sex is not an interest to you in your marriage, it should be. I want you to pay attention to that. Hear me say it. It should be important to you. If it is not, I'm going to really encourage you that you get some help in that area, right? Seek out our counseling system. It's okay if it's not right, but we need to work on it. Fix it. Don't stay there. Okay. Your body is not your own. A couple ideas for building intimacy in your marriage. It's your obligation to communicate how you might want to show affection and receive affection. Don't make assumptions about one another. Okay? There's a lot of carryover that comes from what you grew up with, your youth, what you saw in your family, how your parents interacted, right? Don't assume because you watch movies and TV that that's how your relationship might look like. Don't make assumptions. Have a conversation. Communicate. Tell each other what you need. This one will stop the train for a second. I'm not in the mood. I'm tired. My encouragement to you is to proceed anyway, right? The reality is that your spouse needs that. For those of you that may be retired and you've got a lot of free time, and maybe as 7 o'clock rolls around at night, you're both just tired, you're wiped out. That may not be the best time to have intimate relationships together, right? Communicate on when's a good time of the day for you, right? Maybe 1 in the afternoon, retired people, is fabulous, right? All right, kind of preaching to the choir probably, but all right. Some expectations are not communicated, and they're also sometimes misread. It was interesting. Emily and I talked about some things between us, and she was like, "That's just not what I observed as a kid, right? That's not what I saw." And sometimes I think, well, I don't know if I even saw that, right? So we had this conversation about, well, what does this look like? What does togetherness look like? What's that physical touch look like? Know and identify what your spouse likes. Do they want to be kissed? Yes or no? Do they want to have you hold their hand? Yes or no? Right? This is a connection that bonds you. You don't do these things with anybody else. Find out what it is that makes your spouse tick. Hey, it's Valentine's week. That's perfect. Okay. That's all part of your homework for this week. Okay? Have those conversations. They're a little bit tricky, but here's what I'll tell you. They can be good. Also, don't think when your spouse says, I really don't like it when you do that. Like, I don't really want to hold your hand all the time. That's not a rejection. They're just being honest. Let them be honest with you. It's okay. They still love you. They've been married to you for 30 years, right? So we're just tweaking some things. Okay. Learn to laugh together. Learn to laugh at your silliness. Learn to laugh at even this conversation, right? It's okay. Learn to laugh about some things. Enjoy one another. Okay. Got to move on just a little bit. You know this, but I'm saying it anyway. Intimacy, especially men, does not happen only in your bedroom. Loving acts, kind words, help around the home. It doesn't hurt to flirt with one another, right? Pay attention to one another. You love one another. Show it, right? Show it. Remember when you were 22. Remember that. Develop those feelings. Don't let those die. If you can grow emotionally in your intimacy, it will equal a closer physical relationship. Talk about your relationship. Keep current in it. It's not all about you. Okay, moving quickly. Take time to appreciate one another, talk to each other, resolve issues before you go to sleep at night. Some ideas to rekindle the fire, resolve issues. We've tried to facilitate a little bit of dating one another in this class. Continue that. We've got 2 more classes left. That doesn't mean I want you to stop dating each other, okay? Something that's very helpful for us, we got these dogs. You don't need to get a dog, but they make us go for a 40-minute walk every day. That 40 minutes is like no other time in the day. Go for a walk together. It's fabulous. Go for a walk together. You talk about dumb things, and you're closer because of it. Learn to, if you're not, learn to hug. Learn to hold hands. Learn to touch. Learn to be near together. Learn to sit next to each other on the couch. More importantly, put in effort. Learn to adjust to your marriage as it has grown and it's been different. Okay, learn that. Okay, whew. All right, I'm done. Take what you can from that. Up next, our couple of the week. Gary and Marcia Gilly, come on down. They're going to speak for a couple minutes to us. Look at those young people. There's a, yep. Ooh, that one's really hot there.
You didn't tell us what the subject was.
Yeah, exactly. Surprise! Okay, so go to the next slide, too, because there they are. That's actually after they've been married, and they both look so happy. Look at that. It's wonderful. All right. They're going to give us a couple minutes. Thank you, Gary and Marcia, for talking with us.
Okay. He says I have to go first, because he talks all the time. So anyway, I don't have anything brilliant to say on this subject, except what Jim's already said. It applies, to life. And there's just a couple passages that have kind of reminded me off and on, frequently in our marriage. And I think we all could benefit, all of us ladies, mostly for the girls. In the same way, you wives, be submissive to your own husbands, so that even if any of them are disobedient to the word, they may be won without a word by your behavior, as they observe your chaste and respectful behavior. Your adornment must not be merely external, braiding hair, wearing jewelry, or putting on dresses, but let it be the hidden person of the heart, with the imperishable quality of a gentle and quiet spirit. That doesn't mean you have to be quiet. It just means you have to be gentle about it. You know what I mean? Not cantankerous. I think that's what he's going for. Mm-hmm. Which is, well, Gary said it was. So, which is precious in the sight of God. For in this way, in former times, the holy women also, who hoped in God, used to adorn themselves, being submissive to their own husband, just as Sarah obeyed Abraham. And Sarah's a good one to try to imitate rather than Eve. So, calling him Lord, and you have become her children if you do what is right without being frightened by any fear. And I think that without being frightened by any fear, there's many ways that we're afraid, not just as women, but as people in the world. And the submission thing to your husband is just a practical way of doing it. And then the other one is in Proverbs 14:1. The wise woman builds her house, but the foolish tears it down with her own hands. I mean, there's many ways that I see that as applying. Because like with intimacy, if you withhold it because you're mad or because it's his fault, you know how it is. And then, or being cantankerous, you're tearing it down with your own hands, or worry, or being jealous, or whatever. Wanting to talk real serious and he doesn't want to, kind of thing. Or talking at the wrong time, right before you go to sleep. That's not good. No. But we have some rules that we do. We always go to bed at the same time. We eat a meal together, at least one a day, I think. And I don't give him directions when he's driving.
Oh. Liar.
Yeah, we got that going for us. I was looking for a guy who was funny. On on my list. He had to be stronger spiritually than me. He had to be have a good sense of humor. And I still think that's most important. Okay, that's all.
All right. Yeah, I don't know how we got this week, Jim. Thanks. But anyway, just a couple more things. We started out as friends. So we weren't dating or even interested at the time. We're ministering together at an inner city ministry in Chicago when we were going to Moody. Started out as friends. So our life was wrapped around friendship and ministry right from the very beginning. And that kind of grew all the way throughout the years. I would still say that probably on the top of the list is she's my best friend. I don't have another best friend. She's my best friend. We are friends. We enjoy one another most of the time. We live life together, and that goes over to everything we do in our life. And so it's I could go on a long time. Probably told you a lot of stories over the years anyway. But it's we're very different in a lot of things. So that and neither one of us are real passive kind of people. So that adds to excitement. Jim wanted to know about the spark in our marriage. That's a spark, Jim. Not always the good spark, but we always get through it. We always forgive one another. We don't carry grudges over from year to year or anything. Like it's done and over, even if we have a real hard time. So that's primary. And then the last thing kind of goes along today. I've always just enjoyed looking at her. I just sit around the house looking at her. She doesn't like that, but I do. Okay.
Thank you both for sharing today. I don't know that it was intentional, but I do think that we can grow from hearing from one another, and I think that's good. All right, we are at the place in our class where we want to get to our application time. So men, I'm going to keep you here. Women, I wanted you to go over there. Remember, it's Valentine's week. What a glorious time in your marriages. All right.